Hello, sixth graders. Welcome to lesson 7.3, Write Algebraic Expressions. In this video, you will learn how to write algebraic expressions to represent a situation. And as you know, an algebraic expression is a mathematical phrase that includes at least one variable. And a variable is a letter or symbol that represents a value. So for number 1, we have the situation 30 more than the product of 4 and x. So our job is to take that situation and write an algebraic expression that matches that. Now the key to taking these situations and writing them as algebraic expressions is to pay attention to the key vocabulary words that are inside of these situations. So we have 30 more than. So more than is going to tell me that I'm going to be using addition. And we also have the word product, and it tells me that we're taking the product of 4 and x. All right, so how do we make sense of this? We can write 30 more than as 30 plus, and the product of 4 and x. So I know I'm going to be writing 4 times x. And there are different ways that we can do that. We can show 4 times x as 4 times x, which we are not going to be using anymore because if you look at that, you would get easily confused between which is the multiplication sign and which is the variable. So we're not going to get in the habit of using our multiplication sign that we're used to using. So I'll show you the other ways that we can write that. We can write 4 times x as 4 times x, with 4 in front of the x and them next to each other. In this case, 4 is our coefficient. We can also write it as 4 and then our x in parentheses, again keeping them next to one another. And we can also write it as 4 times x with our dot. Okay, we're going to get in the habit of using this way, with the 4 as our coefficient, the number in front of our variable. So we have 4 times x. So now let's look at this algebraic expression and double check that our situation matches that. 30 more than, so here's our 30 plus, the product of 4 and x. So 4 times x. And we're not going to worry about solving this because we're just writing algebraic expressions. So once we have this set up and we've double checked that it matches the situation, then we can move on to the next one. Example number 2, 4 times the sum of x and 30. Okay, so we've got 4 times the sum of x and 30. So I know I'm going to be adding x plus 30. And it says 4 times the sum of that. So I need to show x plus 30 times 4. So the way I'm going to do that is put parentheses around them and put my 4 on the outside. Because that shows 4 times. When the 4 is outside the parentheses, that shows me that you're multiplying everything inside the parentheses 4 times. Number 3, D decreased by 29. So I've got the word decrease, and of the 4 operations, that tells me subtraction is going to be used. So I'm decreasing D, whatever that value is, by 29. A couple more examples. Number 4, 17 less than the product of 3 and m. So 17 less, it's going to tell me that I'm going to be subtracting 17. The product of 3 and m. All right, so here again we're multiplying 3 and m, and we are showing 17 less than that product. So here's 3m being multiplied, and 17 less, well, subtract 17. Number 4 is a really good example of when you're looking at these situations, not to take them and write the algebraic expressions as they come. So what I mean by that is in the past couple examples, we've gotten used to them reading straight across, left to right, and our algebraic expressions also matching that, right? When we have 4 times the sum of x and 30, we just wrote that going straight across. Number 3, we did d decreased by 29, so we started off with d and subtracted 29. But in this case, number 4, 17 less than the product of 3 and m, we can't just say minus 17, 3 and m, right? Because that's how the situation is read. 17 less than the product of 3 and m. So what I mean by this is that just because the situation is written that way doesn't mean that it necessarily translates that in an algebraic expression. Sometimes you have to move the algebraic expression around so that way it does make sense. So this is how it's written, but this is how we're actually going to write our algebraic expression so that way it matches it and makes sense, okay? Number 5, 2 less than the quotient of d and 16. So I've got 2 less, okay, so I'm going to be subtracting 2. From the quotient, there's division, of d and 16. So again, if I were just to simply take this situation and write it as it's written left to right, I would show 2 less than the quotient of d and 16. Okay? Well, that doesn't really match that because I'm not really subtracting 2 away from d divided by 16. So I need to change this algebraic expression around so that way it does match that. So I'm going to take the quotient of d and 16, d divided by 16, and show 2 less than that. Okay? There's another way that we can show d divided by 16 that we want to make sure we're starting to get in the habit of, and that's using fractions. So d divided by 16, we can show it the normal way with our division sign, or we can use it as a fraction, d divided by 16. It's the same thing. So I'm actually going to rewrite it with the way that we should be getting used to it. D divided by 16 minus 2. All right. Those are, the reason why we're changing them is so that way when we get into more of algebra expressions and equations and all that good stuff, that's just the formatting way that makes everything a lot easier to work with and get in the habit of using. All right, and here are your practice problems. Again, you're going to be writing algebraic expressions that matches these situations. Enjoy the rest of your day.